mission, Jimmy Vasser, should you choose to accept it, is to win the IndyCar Championship. You and your team will face great danger. All of your considerable racing skills will be put to the test. You must get past 4 major obstacles. Al Unser Jr. is consistent, and that's what makes him a threat. He can attack at any time. Scott Pruitt is like your team, young and eager and ready to win. Andre Ribeiro decimated your entire force at Rio de Janeiro. Michael Andretti, a former IndyCar champion himself, shocked everyone with the win on the Nazareth Mile. 4 tough teams, 10 races to go. Good luck, Mr. Vasser. This tape will self-destruct.
It's absolutely beautiful weather in Milwaukee, Wisconsin at Wisconsin State Fair Park, where we're ready for the IndyCars in the Miller 200. 200 miles around this great track. But there is a story already developing from qualifying yesterday where it rained all day. When they finally got some qualifying going, it wasn't enough. They decided to take the practice times instead. And that's created some good news and some bad news for some people. Let's go to Jack Arute.
Well, Paul, what the officials did is they took the practice times from the 3-time practices that were held on Friday and Saturday morning. And lo and behold, look who had the fastest laps in practice. Paul Tracy, the defending champion, but not with Newman Haas anymore, back with Team Penske. Tracy will start on the pin on this 1-mile oval. The great story about Tracy, if you've seen him in interviews throughout the course of the year, he's grown a goatee. He says he will not shave that goatee until he wins a race. Some people say they've brought a razor to victory lane today. Let's check in with Gary Gerald.
Jack, here's the other side of that rain story from yesterday. One of the tough luck guys sits in the cockpit of car number 49. We're talking about Parker Johnstone. They had problems in the morning practice session. They had transmission gearbox difficulties. Went to the spare car, made changes, got the car in great race shape. 8 cars attempted qualifying, and it was Parker who had the fastest speed of all, nearly 172 miles per hour. But then came the rains, then came the disappointment. He is now starting all the way back in the 19th position. But the story doesn't end there. He was going very quick in the warm-up session this morning. In fact, among the top 3, this team thinks they can move from the 10th row to challenge on this newly resurfaced 1 mile at Milwaukee. Now, back to Jack.
Well, Gary, there were 2 instances during practice. The first one, Stefan Johansson, who crashed. But during qualifying, this man here, Alex Zanardi, part of the potent Team Ganassi, went spinning out of turn number 3 into 4 and backed into the wall. You see this area here? Well, this is all padded in because Zanardi's head literally hit all the way back here. That's the kind of impact. But more importantly for Alex Zanardi, the potency of his team. They took the backup car out here. His practice times were strong enough that he starts on the inside of row number 4. Paul?
Well, Gary alluded to it, and we want to show it to you. For the first time since 1968, they have resurfaced this venerable 1 mile track, which is the oldest continuously operated in the country. That's what it used to look like. But then they got to work on it over the winter, and on May 3rd, well, look at it now. Nice, smooth surface. But, Danny, what is that going to mean, do you think, to the race itself?
Well, a couple of things. Of course, they don't have to contend with the bumps. But we talked to Paul Tracy earlier, and he said the track really hasn't changed. It still loses grip after about 30 laps in the car, 35 laps. And one thing that we've lost is that apron down low where they used to do a lot of passing. So I think we're going to see a little bit different racetrack, and they're going to have to move the groove up higher today and try to run 2 abreast.
So at least the early laps will be somewhat experimental for these 28 IndyCar drivers. Now, let's go back to the starting grid once again, and Gary Gerald.
And among the 28, Paul, a young second-generation driver who's realizing a dream today. P.J. Jones sits in the cockpit of Dan Gurney's number 98. He's making his IndyCar debut. Parnelli Jones, his famous father, got his first ever IndyCar start on this racetrack 36 years ago in 1960. He drives for Dan Gurney's All-American Racing Team. Look at the paint job here in the nose. The Eagles trying to fly with Toyota power from the back of the pack. P.J. Jones and his teammate Juan Manuel Fangio at the wheel. More from Milwaukee right after this break.
It's equal parts sweat and steel. It's decisions made in the split of a second, and pain endured for the length of a day. And at the finish, you're either toasting victory We're getting set to do it all over again next week. It's auto racing, the way we do it, on the Miller team.
What do you get when you cross a high-quality conventional motor oil with an advanced formula synthetic? A revolutionary oil that protects better than regular oils, yet costs less than full synthetics. DuraBlend from Valvoline. Valvoline's the #1 choice of top mechanics.
Goodyear AquaTread revolutionized wet traction design. Now Goodyear introduces the first tire with a lifetime tread life warranty. The new all-season InfiniTread. Its tread is guaranteed for as long as you own your car. Call 1-800-GOODYEAR.
Right now, get a $40 introductory manufacturer's rebate from Goodyear when you buy 4 InfiniTread radials, Goodyear's longest-wearing passenger tire. That's $40 on 4 Goodyear InfiniTread. But hurry, this Goodyear offer ends soon.
These days, you're working harder than ever. You need a truck that does, too.
Don't move.
Introducing the all-new 1997 Ford F-150. With even more horsepower and torque, and all the legendary strength of an F-Series.
Better get to the Grand Canyon before we do.
The all-new Ford F-150.
If more top mechanics use one motor oil over any other brand in their own cars and trucks, maybe it's time you changed your oil. Valvoline, the #1 choice of America's top mechanics.
The Miller 200. This ABC Sports exclusive brought to you by the Miller Brewing Company, proud sponsor of the Miller Racing Team. We race for beer. Goodyear, #1 in tires. Valvoline DuraBlend, the #1 selling semi-synthetic motor oil. And the all-new Ford F-150, strength after strength after strength.
Well, the engines have just been ordered into life on the 28 Indy cars here as we're ready for the start of the Miller 200 from Wisconsin State Fair Park here in West Allis, Wisconsin, a suburb to the west of downtown Milwaukee. Now let's take a look at how they line up in the starting grid. On the pole will be Paul Tracy alongside his former teammate Emerson Fittipaldi. In row 2, Christian Fittipaldi and Brian Herta. The third row, Michael Andretti, who won on the mile oval at Nazareth, and Jill DeFerrin. In row 4, Alex Zanardi and Raul Boisel. The fifth row, Mark Blundell is back, and he is alongside Robbie Gordon. In row number 6, Al Unser Jr. currently second in the points, and Mauricio Gugelmin. In the 7th row, Bobby Rahal and the points leader, Jimmy Vasser. The 8th row, Scott Pruitt and Andre Ribeiro. In row 9, Adrian Fernandez and rookie Greg Moore. The 10th row, Parker Johnstone, 19th starting position, and Stefan Johansson. In the 11th row, Roberto Moreno and Jeff Krosnoff. The 12th row, Juan Fangio and Michel Jourdain Jr. Row 13, Eddie Lawson and Eliseo Salazar. And in the 14th row, P.J. Jones and Hiro Matsushita. So that's the way they line up. They've already started on the first of the parade laps. So what we have ahead of us is 200 laps, 200 miles. The race record set by Michael Andretti back in '92 at 138 miles an hour. And 2 races in the modern history here have run without a yellow flag. And we've had some go quite some distance before the yellow came out. Here are the way the points set up with Jimmy Vasser leading the points fight. Al Unser Jr., Scott Pruitt, Andrew Ribeiro, and Jill DeFerrin and Greg Moore, all very closely grouped. And of course, with 10 races to go in the series, the focus is right now on the championship. Our stories for the day, well, we're going to keep track of who is moving up in the field. We mentioned Parker Johnstone, Al Unser Jr., some other key figures starting back in the pack due to the way they qualified here, or as a matter of fact, did not qualify. What about those tire wars? We'll be keeping track of those. The battle may be tipping back away from Firestone toward Goodyear, and the package, that Honda Renard Firestone grouping,
we'll see how it works out today. That may be changing as well. Let's go to Gary Gerald.
Well, that package has been so dominant. We've talked about it, but we think maybe today it could be a Penske-type story as they switch around because of the Mercedes power. They've come to the fore. Goodyear has got a terrific tire that they think is race-ready at Milwaukee. And, of course, the Penske chassis have proved they're very strong on the short tracks. Remember, Emerson Fittipaldi, even though he is with Carl Hogan, they still pool the information with Alan Jr. and Paul Tracy. We think all three of those cars have got the same basic setup. Jack?
And Gary, here is that setup. According to Team Penske, what they've tried to do for the initial part of this race is have all the cars with a slight bit of push. The wisdom is that as the fuel load goes down and the car begins to lighten up, the push will go away. They tried to set the cars up more neutral, but then the cars got very loose at the end of a fuel run. And the one thing that all the engineers said, and the drivers agreed for Team Penske, you don't want these cars being loose on the mile at Milwaukee. Paul?
Well, so the field assembles. There is the PPG pace car, and at the wheel, the 1964 winner of this race, first guy to win here in a rear-engine car. That's none other than Parnelli Jones. Of course, his son, PJ, starts at the back of the field, and his other son, Paige, is watching at home, still recovering from an accident over a year ago. But, of course, Parnelli only drives the pace lap itself. Onboard cameras, this great view right over the top of Michael Andretti's head. We've got a number of them for you. There's Jimmy Vasser back in the field over his right shoulder. And Robbie Gordon, that camera mounted right on the end plate of the rear wing. Scott Pruitt, again over the shoulder. And there is Parker Johnstone. So we've certainly got the cameras placed where we can watch the battle as it is ready to develop on this field. We should be moving into the aligned rows of two. Interesting rules affecting the yellows. When we get to them, we'll discuss those for you. It has the makings of a great day, Danny Sullivan.
Well, I think it does because you've got so many good guys sprinkled through the field. We got a good, strong group at the front, then some other fast guys with Robbie Gordon and Alan Jr. back in 10th and 11th spot, and then further back, Parker Johnstone, 19th. Scott Pruitt in 15th, Jimmy Vasser, the points leader, in 14th, and Bobby Rahal, who always runs good, back in 13th.
On that newly repaved surface, they're aligned at the front of the field. The starter, Jens Wintel, takes a look at him. Here we go as Paul Tracy surges forward. Gil DePerrin tries to move out and around the second row. In fact, gets it done. Tracy begins to pull away. Emerson Fittipaldi sits second. DePerrin's looking for third. He's got it. Paul Tracy down the backstretch. As we've got trouble coming off at turn two, several cars.
I think Parker Johnstone had a spin there. I think he went completely around. It doesn't look like he hit anything, but it'll definitely bring out the yellow.
Well, the yellow is out. Now, there is an interesting set of rules. We'll try to run through them for you. What they do is the minute the yellow comes out now, the pits are closed. See that sign with a P on it? That's the one that tells you the pits are closed. And here is what happened with Parker Johnstone.
He's all by himself in there. He just got on the gas a little bit hard. Might not have had the temperature up. He certainly got the temperature up there now. That flame you saw come out of the back is just backing off. That's just burning off all the exhaust gases there. That's not a problem with the car.
Watching for Parker in the overhead view. There he is. Loses it down to the inside. Boy, that gave some people heart attacks. Gets it covered and right back, pointed straight and ready to go. Now, these other rules with regard to pits. Pits are closed, as you see. The pits will open for lead lap cars. Of course, it won't happen this time because we're only a half lap into the run. But into the race, assuming somebody wants to pit, the lead lap cars will pit first. And then 1 lap later, they'll show a sign that lets all the cars pit. And then when they're ready to go back to green, the field will split up. The cars on the lead lap will move to the inside, or the cars left. And the cars that have been lapped will move to the high side or the right side. And then at the green, they go racing once again, but they cannot start racing until they cross the start-finish line. Danny?
Well, that's right, and something that has changed. Traditionally, when it went green, your crew yelled at you, the green light came on, you could pass anybody anywhere. You cannot pass now until you cross that start-finish line.
All right, now we can take a look at Parker Johnstone and what caused the yellow here on the start from his onboard camera there. He takes the green flag, moves down inside of Adrian Fernandez.